Pay. We're on Yuma. Pay Amid Aleph. Kol hashiurin kulan bekazayis. Whenever we mention a shear when it comes to eating, in general, the shear is kazayis. Chutz mitumas oichlin. Except when you have food that is going to transmit tuma to another food, that's going to be bekebetza. And sheshina kasuv b'mashmon, the Torah, when it talked about tumas oichlin, used a different phraseology than achila. V'shinu chachamim b'shiurin. Basically, the chachamim took their cue from the Torah, and they changed the shear by tumas oichlin. And urai l'davar Yom Kippurim. The proof to this is Yom Kippur. Ma'ishina kasuv b'mashmo. Where do we see on Yom Kippur that the Torah changed its language? It didn't say lo yisoichal, don't eat on Yom Kippur. It said lo su'uneh, you should afflict yourself. And therefore, rather than the shear for eating on Yom Kippur being a kazayas, they said it's a shear koseves. Why is that approved? Because maybe if I would have only had the language by Tuma, Orcha de Krohu, maybe over there. It's the way it's written by Tuma. You wouldn't be able to prove unless you have an example by Yom Kippur that since over there the Torah used a different language, it means a different shir. Same thing by Tuma Soichlin. Now, Tuma Soichlin kibeitza minolam. How do I know that in order for food to transmit Tuma to another food, the food has to be the size of a kibeitza? Amra vavo, Amra belozdo, Amra kra. Nikola ochel asher yeyachel. Of all the foods that can be eaten, implying oichel haba machmas oichel. We're talking about a food that comes via another food. Ve'ezeh, zeu beitza tarnagoylas. That's the egg of a chicken. Chicken is food, and the egg is maybe we're talking about a goat and something that comes out of the goat. So the Gemara says b'chusar shchita. Yeah, but a gedi is not food. You can't eat a live gedi. Ben pakua, but it could be a goat that is taken out by cesarean section, which you can eat without shchita. I know, but you can't eat it alive, tone kri. You still have to tear it open, so it's b'chusar that. Well, if you're going to say that it's an egg, maybe it'll be an ostrich egg. Ema beitzas bar yuchni, which is a very big egg. More says, if you're going to try to look for the biggest, tafasta merubalo tafasta. Tafasta muat, but if you look for the smallest egg, tafasta. And that's the chicken egg. Ema beitzas support. Maybe it's a smaller egg, like an egg of a robin. The zutter tuva, it's smaller than even the chicken egg. The chicken egg, the Chachamim calculated that fits in, you could swallow it whole. It's the smallest egg that could be swallowed whole. The back of our throat can hold the beit of Tarakol is nothing larger than that. So there is prohibited chaylev. And if you eat prohibited chaylev, you have to normally bring a korban chatas. If you did it b'shogeg. Let's say bisman hazeh, tzarech sheyichtov lo shir. You should keep a diary and you should write down exactly how much shir you ate of it. Because Shamayavo Beizinacha v'yarbe v'shiurin. Later on, when Eliyahu Novi comes, a new bezdin will be formed, and maybe the shiurim of bringing a korban will have changed. So, what does it mean? Ma yarbe b'shiurin. Inema the mechayvi korban akazayis cotton. Maybe you have to keep track of how much chaylev you ate, because maybe in the future they'll say, oh, even such a small amount as a kazayis, and you have to bring a korban. Tanya, Asher lo ta'asena bishgaga v'Hashem. So who brings a korban? Ashav midioso, maybe korban asher gaso. If you informed a person, oh, you know what? You committed an aveira. Such a person brings a korban. But lo
How can you have retroactive avera? In other words, if the Chazal say something to make a zera today, you can't say what you did yesterday. You have to bring a korban for it. That only applies for today. So how can they say that if the base of meeting shall come with the chaylev that you ate before, you got to bring a korban? It wasn't anything wrong before when you did it.
The Gemara is going to end up just the opposite. That they're going to say, oh, the shear to bring a korban is much larger, and therefore the shear that you ate, you don't have to bring a korban. That's what yarbe b'shiurim really means.
But generally, can you make if you make a gzeira today, can it be retroactive? As far as and generally,
the din of chaylev is a din min Torah, and there is a shear kazayis. The question is, how much is kazayis? Is it 3 ounces? Is it 4 ounces? Is it 5 ounces? So he has to keep track of how much he ate, because at some point he will be told, oh, you know what? At that time, you ate an amount of chaylev that would have triggered a korban, and you owe a korban. So it's not that they invented a new gzeira. The shear, it has to be clarified, what is the shear bisman hazeh?
but if the Chazal made at that time, the Chazal made a takara, that was the shear. Later on, if it was revealed
the shear that Chazal said is kazayas. They didn't say ounces. So there is a dispute. Like when you go to the Seder, you go with all sorts of charts. Chazon Ish, Rav Moshe, the Mishnah Brura. This says 3.3. This says 4.3. There's all sorts of machlokas adeos. What is considered revius yayin? So to fulfill all of them, because we want to do the mitzvah and a mufchar, we go after the biggest chumrah shear. But when it comes to bringing that's how they have to keep track. Allah says the Gemara is gadol. Just the opposite. They're going to say that, you know what, you don't owe a korban because you didn't eat enough. So why was there a havamina to say yarbe b'shiurin? Shema yarbe b'korbanos machmas shirmin. The yarbe doesn't go on the shear. It goes on the possibility that you would have had to bring a lot more korbanos if the shear became smaller. Rav Yechon. Shiurin v'oinshin halach l'mosh misina. The shear of what triggers an isser and what punishment you get in terms of the shear that you have to eat in order to get punishment, these are halach l'mosh misina. Freit the Gemara oinshin, I understand maybe shiurin, but how can you tell me that punishment is midrabanan or halach l'mosh misina? Michtav ksivi. It's written in the Torah, kares or misa. Halachi kamer. Arav Yechon. Shiurim shel the shear that triggers an oynish. That's a halach l'mosh misina. Tanam ha'achi shiurim shel oynish halach l'mosh misina. Acher moimrim beis dino shel yavitz tiknum. Most people hold Yavitz was Osniel ben Knaz, the first shofet after Yoshua. And he was Mesake in lots of takonas. He was Choizer 300 halachos b'pulpulo. And the Beis Din of Yavitz made these shiurin shel oinshim. Freit Gemara v'haksi ve'la mitzvahs she'en novi v'shal chadish dover a Navi cannot be machadish something new. Ella shachachu v'chazar v'yuzdu. Ein chanami. In the time of Moshe, they knew it, but then they forgot it. And Osniel ben Knaz, through his pilpul, had to come back and recover it, according to that shita. Then Ashoy Simoli Lugmav. Lugmav is plural. So the Mishnah said if somebody drinks 2 cheekfuls, that's the chiyuv of drinking on Yom Kippur. It doesn't mean 2 full cheekfuls. If you had some fluid in your mouth and you moved all the fluid to one side, and it makes it look like both of your cheeks are full, that's the shear. Freit Gemara v'anatznan moli lugmav, meaning it's full 2 cheekfuls. Ema kim moli lugmav, it looks like it, but that doesn't have to really be that amount. Meitzveh, I'll ask you a kasha. Kama yishtav yechayiv. How much do you have to drink in order on Yom Kippur in order to be chayiv? Beis Shammai oimrim revius. Beis Hillel oimrim moli lugmav. Cheekfuls. Rabbi Yehuda oimrim mishum Elazar kim moli lugmav. Not fully moli lugmav, but like it. A little bit less. Rabbi Yehuda oimrim kedei gmiya. Like Gmiya is even less than that. Like tasting. So, why is the Baraisa better in our Mishnah where it set it up where even if you only have 1 cheekful, but you move it over to one side, it makes it look like 2? Here also, all of these things are in order to be seen like that. So if that's the case, if there's no difference, what's the difference between Rabbi Eliezer, Kim Moli Lugmav, and Beis Hillel of Moli Lugmav? Rabbi Eliezer, it could be Naya Moli Lugmav Tochuk. That means if it's exactly Moli Lugmav, that would be enough kamina between the two. If this is correct, normally Beis Hillel is more makel. But if Beis Shammai is going to give us a larger shear before your chayiv, and L'chora Revius is a larger shear than Moli Lugmav, then it's a kula of Beis Shammai. Why isn't that listed among the kula of Beis Shammai? Amr lei ki itchel. I'll ask you about the Moli Lugmav of Og Melech HaBashan, a giant. His cheeks will be 10 ounces, so Revius will only be 3 ounces. So of course, Beis Shammai in that case would be Machmir. Beis Shammai lechumra. Maski Lord of Zera. Johnny, welcome back. So good to see you. I just noticed you there. Okay, Maskim Rav Zera, Maishna Achila, the Kol Chad V'Chad B'Koseves. Now, when it comes to Isra Achila, it's the size of a koseves, the size of a large date with its pit, and it's the same shear for every person. U'Maishna Shasir the Kol Chad V'Chad B'Didei. The halacha in Shulchan Aruch is each person's own Moli Lugmav. Your cheekful, that's the shear for you. So understand. By achila, it's a standard shear. By drinking, it's different for everybody. Yeah, Armalei Abai, Kimul Rabbanon, that because seves the Bahachi meis v'daite, Batzer Ba'achilo meis v'daite. It has to do with Yishuv Adas. What amount of eating is going to calm the person and not want to eat more? So Chachamim calculate that's a koseves. And less than a koseves, you have no Yishuv Adas. B'shesiya, b'didei meis v'daite, b'chavertelo meis v'daite. Your cheekful of water is going to give Yishuv Adas, but it won't give Yishuv Adas to my friend. Each person, his own cheekful is what gives him Yishuv Adas. Maskiv Rav Zeir Chol Olam Kulo B'Koseves, the Og Melech HaBashan B'Koseves. Understand? Even Og Melech HaBashan is going to be satisfied. Is going to have Yishuv Adas with a little date. Amalei Abaya, yeah. Kimul Rabbanon B'Achim Miyas V'Daita calculated the shear that's going to give you Yishuv Adas. Batzer Machim, it's less than that shear, Lo Miyas V'Daita. Now, miyu kulal min tuva. It all depends on how much yishuv hadas. For most people, koseves is going to give very adequate yishuv hadas. Ogbel chabosh and purta. He'll have yishuv hadas. It'll be less than an average person, but it's still yishuv hadas. A fatty piece of steak is bikoseves. The lulve gefanim and a little bit of salad is also bikoseves. So I understand. We all know that depending on what food we eat, that'll make a difference whether you have yishuv hadas or not. It can't be a steak and salad the same thing. No, a koseves will give yishuv hadas, and botzer ma'achi lo miyasvadaita. Less than so will not. Miyu basar shamin tuva, fatty piece of steak, it'll give a lot of yishuv hadas. Lul gefanim porta, you'll have yishuv hadas. It won't be as much as steak, but yishuv hadas it will be. In order to trigger a chiyuv, let's say by eating the vela or any isser, it's kazayas b'chtei achilas pras. Normally, it's kazayas b'chtei achilas pras. Achilas pras is eating what it takes you to eat a loaf of bread, which is 9 minutes. So if I'm eating matzah and I want the mitzvah of matzah, I've got to eat the kazayas within 9 minutes. If I drag it out and nibble on it, and it takes me 20 minutes to eat the kazayas, there's no achila. Similarly, if I eat chazir, and I eat the chazir, it takes me 20 minutes to eat the kazayas, I don't get malchus. I'm not allowed to do it. Chatzi shir is awesome in the Torah, but I only get malchus if I ate it within achilas pras. So I understand, because koseves, even though it's a larger shir, is b'chtei achilas pras, you have to wait the same amount of time. How could that be? Chazal established that if you eat a koseves in that period of time, it'll have yishuv hadas. If you take longer or you eat less, then there won't be yishuv hadas. If a koseves works, why all of a sudden, for example, in order to passel your body, if you eat something tomei, you have to eat a chatzi pras. So it's the same amount? Koseves for Yom Kippur and chatzi pras for Tumah? Armei Rav Baba, that's not a kasha. Hanach l'tumah gvia. Creating tum in your body is a drabonon. The lav d'oraisihi. So you can't compare the cases. Armei Rav Baba achi. Is that so? Maksi veloti tamu b'hevet meisem bam. Armei Rav Baba mikan shetumah gvia d'oraisa. Tum of your body is d'oraisa. It's the same. Meat rabbonon across machtabam. It's not d'oraisa. It's rabbinic. And the Torah found a pasuk to lean on. Then it says, Kol ha'oichlin is mitztarif. If I eat a half a kazayas of this and a half a kazayas of that, I ate a full kazayas of food, it's all mitztarif. Achal unsu milsa, umilcha mitztarif. For example, I eat a piece of meat with salt, and the amount of salt completes the shear, then it's mitztarif. Afagav de lavachilu. Even though salt, you don't eat salt, it's not something that you would eat. But kivin dachli inshi, since you eat salt with the meat, mitztarfin. Aresh Lakish is similar. Tzir shal gabi yerek. You have like a fish brine that's on a vegetable, and the fish brine, it bumped the vegetable up to the right shear. Mitztarif like a koseves b'yom kippur. If it brings it to a size of a koseves on Yom Kippur, you're going to be chai. So pshita, I mean, why is this? You just taught me that. Mashkehu. Seer is a fluid, and maybe only oichel and oichel are mitzdarf, but maybe a fluid and oichel is not mitzdarf. Kamash balan, kol achshure uchla uchlahu. If this fish brine is a hechsher to eating this vegetable, you dip the vegetable in the fish brine to make it easier to eat. It's considered oichel. Let's say, Erev Yom Kippur, a person stuffed himself right until the last minute. So he's really full. Then Yom Kippur starts and he eats something on a full stomach. That's called an achila gasa. The din is you're potter from eating on Yom Kippur. My time, asher lo su'un eksiv prat lamazik. That means you have to restrain from eating that would otherwise afflict you. Well, you're afflicted. You damaged yourself by this. It's not hanoah. Normally, a non-kohen who eats truma, he has to pay the kohen, the keren and the chomish, principal and chomish. However, if a non-kohen ate truma on a full stomach, he only pays principal, not the knas. Again, because ki yoichal prat lamazik. By damaging himself through eating when he's not interested in eating, you don't pay the knas. Zar shekoises sa'arim shel truma, a non-kohen that chews barley of truma, we'll finish this tomorrow. So tomorrow we're going to learn at 4:30 p.m. 4:30 p.m.